Before the advent of oil or the discovery of oil in Nigeria, agriculture was the mainstay of the economy. But with that, there was a large diversion. To a large extent, this sector of the economy has suffered a setback. How best can this be brought back to its pride of place? That is our trust on the program Frank Talk this morning. My name is Alpha Jackden. A very good morning to you. I am being joined in the studios by Mr. Retson Ted Heke. He happens to be the National Coordinator Secretary General of the Nigeria Farmers Group and Cooperative Society. Retson, thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
It's time to be being in the program this morning.
Let's begin this way. When I see a man your age, a young man, that's what I mean, showing so much interest in agriculture, I tend to wonder where that passion came from. Share your thoughts with me.
The one or two words to use to qualify that would be economic nationalism.
Okay.
One of the things that you would see from the developing countries that are making progress is that if you don't believe in your country, you cannot grow your country. And so development, once development is without, is coming from, it's driven by external forces, you always end up realizing that the people never end up benefiting because the pace of growth and development is determined by those who are producing for you. But when development and growth is driven from the inside, you are able to empower your people, it is easier to industrialize, and it is most often it is easier to create a content that is not only viable or helpful to the people, but can also drive even industrialization within the system. And that is how growth and development has happened over the world, even with regard to developed countries. And that's why I always tell people to study, read, because our generation are not reading. If you look at Kicking Away the Ladder by Professor Lee Jackden, he's a professor at Princeton University, he stated it clearly. And so for us, what is it that we have in the country that can drive our own growth? 82 million arable hectares of farmland is what we have. We don't have all the fantastic technologies in the world right now. We don't. Right. So what do? You look at what you have. You develop what you have to create an industry. 180 million Nigerians can afford to do without mobile phones. 180 million Nigerians can afford to do without personal cars. But 180 million Nigerians cannot afford to do without food.
Not at all.
So what do? You develop that industry. Because once you begin to develop your agricultural industry strongly, then you realize that there will be the need for good roads and good transport system. So what have you done? From agriculture already developing what? Infrastructure. And so we went in as a cooperative, as a group, to bring back this process because we felt between the 60s and the 90s, we lost it as a country. I always end up blaming our parents.
That was actually my next question. Where did we lose it?
We lost it. A lot of people say we lost it during between the first and the second, the first coup and the counter coup of 1966. But I think we lost it even before then, because when the British handed over power, historically they will tell you that the North was empowered because they were backward. No, I think what they did was they wanted to be in control. And the essence of development of our people, people were not trained in technology. If you remember, the best of our politicians at that time were what? Were politicians, were lawyers. Okay, so if you don't develop people with the knowledge that is capable of growing the local industry, you've not developed them at all. That's number one. Number two, the language of development was a problem. See, if you go to Germany, the language of science and technology is what? It's German. If you go to Japan, it's Japanese. If you go to China, it's Chinese. Now, if the language of development in this country is Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba, you will not tell me that our locals will have problem understanding quadratic equation or understanding chemical composition and so on and so forth. So once we lost that foundation, and that's what I keep telling people that, look, once your mind is controlled, Professor Carter Wilson said it. He said if you control the mind of a man, you control the man. Once we lost that foundation in the beginning, we're always going to struggle to catch up. And so we are having a problem of proper education of our people to understand that miracles don't grow economy, prayers don't grow economy. For those of us who are Christians, we'll tell you that St. Paul said that faith is good. But what is faith? What is prayer without works? And so we lost that foundation. We lost the foundation and understanding of work, which is what our fathers had. That it got to a point where when we were growing up as children, if we had problems in school, what will happen? The teacher will flog you, punish you. But in this you have in a generation where the parents will go and say, don't touch my child. What are you talking about? What are you trying to do to this child? So we lost that opportunity, and getting it back to destroy is easy.
I was talking to a friend who is an expert in agriculture, and we were talking about, okay, how can one have multiple streams of income? Is agric one of the sectors that one should look into? And in his opinion, don't even go there. And I went, why, sir? He told me agriculture is expensive. Do you agree with him? Absolutely.
However, I agree with him that agriculture is expensive, but I don't agree with him that don't even go there. To sink one oil well, you probably end up spending $100 million.
That's right.
If you invest $100 million in farming, in agriculture, it will give you 10 times the investment, and the money will come back to you faster than oil will give you back to you. So when you tell me that don't go there, if you tell me don't go there because of cost, like I said, I can understand. But what then do you do? You see, I've always felt that free trade is a fraud. The concept of globalization and free trade is a fraud. And this is why I think so. If you go to the United States today, one of the most subsidized sectors in the U.S. is the agricultural sector.
That's right.
And as you know, Donald Trump is preaching American first. What's American first? American first is economic nationalism. In other words, the same country that's preaching globalization is telling you that you take care of the interests of Americans first.
Well, it has always been anyway.
It has always been, exactly.
Ownership to the means of production.
Exactly. So what we should do, what the government should do, and this is why I feel that they're failing, to do is this. A state in India have 4 million tractors. How many tractors do we have in Nigeria?
We'll get there. Go on.
That is the point. So government should look, if agriculture is expensive, it's very expensive for those of us as a cooperative. We have about 2,000 hectares of maize, as I'm talking to you right now, that is independent of zero. There is zero government commitment. The government had promised us they were going to give us support, tractor support, and so on and so forth. Now, how do you reduce the cost for the private sector or the ordinary farmer on the street who wants to do it? Is to provide some of the basic facilities, provide equipment, provide support structure, so that if the total cost of farming a hectare of maize is 300,000, and all I am committing is about 70,000, it will no longer be expensive. So you see that gap, that balance is not there. And so because the balance is not there, what the private man is doing is what? Is practically doing everything on his own. You are going to provide your own generating unit. You are going to provide your own tractors. You are going to pay for laborers. Then where is the support coming from? And so no matter how advanced an economy is, one of the things they have used to drive the economy is subsidy in all the sectors. And that's why I see anytime that Americans say, should report the European Union to World Trade Organization that, look, European Union is subsidizing Airbus ADS. European Union will report America with the view that America is subsidizing who? Boeing. So if you report me, I'm going to report you. It's the hypocrisy of the industrialized economy. So you cannot tell me that agric is the only business today that you can go into farming maize, commit 300,000, and then you're having more than 200-300% return within 3 months. Which other business gives you that kind of comfort or that kind of return? So yes, agric is fantastic. Yes, there are challenges, but there's no business out there today that is more as viable as agriculture.
How do we begin to surmount some of those challenges? Because let's look at it from the youth perspective. Yeah. There are lots of youths out there that are interested, but to be very honest with you, they don't even know where to start from. They probably don't even know who to talk to. But as far as expertise is concerned, ICT, they are willing to be marketers. As far as the value chain is concerned, they know that there's 1 or 2 things they can contribute, but they don't even know who to talk to.
That is the essence and the core messaging of cooperative, even though cooperative has lost its value, really. You see, what cooperatives ordinarily should do is a group of people coming together with a common purpose. It is maize we want to farm, and then being able to form what we call contributory membership, where every member can contribute a certain sum. Now, there are agencies of government that should provide support. The Ministry of Agric supposedly should provide support. The Bank of Agric supposedly should provide support. NISAL supposedly should provide support. CBN through the Anchor Borrowers Program supposedly should provide support. But what the youth, a lot of our youth are failing to do is, and it is a global problem anyway, it's not a Nigerian problem. We have become what we call the television generation or the mobile generation, where the WhatsApp generation, where all we do is to put our pictures and so on and so forth on Instagram and then how beautiful, how good I'm looking. What the youth should do is to begin to concentrate more on using these resources available before us, the internet generally, and research on ways to assess a lot of these opportunities that are available for them. Because a lot of opportunities are available for them.
Credit schemes and what?
Yes. I mean, you wouldn't believe that. Until recently, a lot of people didn't know that a graduate can take a certificate and go to a bank of industry, register with bank of industry, open an account. Bank of industry will invite them to go for training, and if the training is successful, give them money to start up businesses. They don't. So, like I said, it takes us back. It's all about education. It's not just going to school that is education. You know what I'm talking about? It's all about continuing education, continuing growth, continuing self-development. Because, sorry, governments are becoming problematic worldwide. You see the Americans shouting about government wants to take away their healthcare. Okay? Donald Trump is having a lot of difficulties right now. Government is becoming problematic worldwide. So what do? What we are doing as a cooperative is to force government to act by showing them that, look, we can do it. You're not providing a cover to us, but what are we doing? We are using the power of the social media, connecting Nigerians across the world, taking out the limiting factor. Because when we went to Cooperative Association of Nigeria, the central unit, somebody was telling us that you don't need more than 20 people to be in a cooperative, to open a cooperative society.
Yes, actually, those are some of the things. There should be a stipulated number of persons and what have you. You know.
That is insanity.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Why should a cooperative be limited by numbers? The cooperative we are running right now, we have members who are from Australia, who are Nigerians, who are from the UK, who are Nigerians, who are from the United States, who are Nigerians. When we went before them and they said that this is what you have done, I told them, go to hell with your regulations and your processes. Do you actually want this country to develop? Why would you limit anybody by numbers? If you have, what is the beautiful thing about cooperative? The beautiful thing about cooperative is that people having common purpose and common cause. That's right. So what do you do? Why? Okay, if there are 1 million people who have common purpose and common cause, I tell them that they cannot become an association or a unit. And is it not numbers you're looking at? 180 million. We have the most populous black nation on earth, about the 6th or 7th largest country in the world. So are you telling me that you're going to be limiting people who are willing to develop your economy, grow the youth base, increase the number of people in the workforce, increase the number of amount to feed? You're telling me you're limiting them by bureaucratic processes? So we cut them off completely. And guess what? We are running the program and the project successfully without any the general cooperative input from the associations, and even without any government agency. So it can be done. The processes should be loosened up. Yes, we should think of deregulating the process of doing business for Nigerians, not foreigners. Because one of the concepts we have always had is, let us deregulate the market so that foreigners can bring in direct investment. Look, until recently, until the 60s and the 70s, before you can set up a business in the US, you must have 70% of ownership of a US citizen, only 70% of your business. So you come through what? Through indigents, like what is done in China today. If you take $100 million to China, you can't put the money into the Chinese economy until you have a Chinese company as the arrowhead that is with government. And once that money comes in, it's not going anywhere.
Well, I want to believe that is probably to enhance regulation.
Yes.
You know, looking at it from the cooperative perspective, can we move from the peasant agricultural base we operate upon today to something more mechanical, even if it is not that kind of the American style where you may see a farm from here to Kaduna and what have you? Do you think that in the near future we can begin to see a semblance of that, as long as we are willing to come under one cooperative and move ahead?
The truth is, if we don't change that mindset, we actually cannot grow as a country. We won't grow. We must get to that point. Government must be honest with themselves. If you go to most of these farmlands, where I am, I have pockets of farmland across more than 600 or 700 hectares of small farm, one plot, 1 hectare, 1 acres. And I realize that these guys are struggling to battle the armyworm. They don't even know what, sometimes they just plant and they leave them and then wait on God. On the day that God says, I will harvest, they come and harvest. You cannot say you want to increase your GDP drastically because of the recession, because of what I call the devaluation of oil globally. You cannot say you want to grow your economy, create alternative sources of revenue, and then allow this peasant structure of farming to hold. Because if it remains, we will not grow. Now, what do? Like we said, you're right. We cannot become we cannot get to the level of the United States today. We should look at the concept that was utilized by the Malaysians and Indonesians when they came here to take palm oil from us in the 70s, 1976 to be precise. A friend was in Malaysia recently, and he was driving through a refinery that was more than 10 hectares. And then he was telling them, look, you guys, you're building wonderful refineries here. How many barrels of crude oil do you refine? They said, no, this is not a refinery for crude oil. This is a refinery for palm oil. We import 1 million metric tons of palm oil into this country every year. And most of that palm oil comes from Malaysia and Indonesia. So what do? I always say utilize the Asian model. What do? You begin to create pockets of government support across all the zones of the country. If you cannot buy 1 million tractors, no problem, don't buy 1 million tractors. At least make sure that every zone in this country have 100,000 tractors.
But do you know several administrations have tried that in the past?
Control and monitoring mechanism.
Maintenance.
Yes, because what government does, and this is why I'm not a big fan of democracy, okay? Because I've always said this. The developing economies that are working well, or not a big fan of democracy, but I'm a big fan of dictatorial democracies.
Well, all right, fine.
Okay, so
that's your opinion.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Now, you see, most of these countries that are developed, talked about Malaysia, China, and so on and so forth. Look at their systems of government. Okay, even in Africa here, look at the two countries that are the number 1 and 2 with regards to foreign investment and growth: Rwanda and Ethiopia. You begin to understand the dynamics. Now, the system, one of the things that democratic system does is they create too many structures of loose interests. And so if you have government bringing in 100,000 tractors, for example, okay, and you dump them in Kaduna to take care of the north east or northwest.
Not central.
Not central. What happens? Tomorrow, a politician will come and say, the governor said he wants 5 tractors for his farm. Senator said he wants 2 tractors. Before you know what's happening, the system is what? We practically collapse in the hands of those who are ordinarily supposed to make the system work. That's what I'm talking about. Monitoring, control, and structural readjustment. We must begin to understand that everything you are doing to support the government, you are doing it to support the state, you are doing it to support your own people, you are doing it to support the system so that it can work. Once we have that mindset and understanding, if government begin to dump 100 tractors in every senatorial district, or rather, in every zone of this country, then everybody who is giving those tractors will be held accountable. You must be given the power to say no to political interest. Because right now what you have is, and it's a problem, yes, but what can you really do about it? Most of our people at the local level have no ability or capacity to say no to powers from above. So they cannot control them. Exactly. So control we need a structural enforcement mechanism that is independent of any government official. Okay? It's going to take us time to get there, but we can begin, we're going to start gradually. However, what the government can also do is, if you feel that you're going to have difficulties managing this at the government level, then bring in consultants. Right?
Why consultants? Listen, as far as agriculture is concerned, that is one mainstay of human endeavor that I know we don't lack expertise in this country. You don't need to go to anywhere to bring any form of consultant as far as...
I'm talking about local consultants.
Well, what do you mean by local consultant?
You see, one of the things that we cannot run away from is that we right now don't have this qualified capacity to manage large farms. We don't have it that much in this country.
All right, in that instance, yes, I agree with you.
That's what I'm saying.
Fine.
Okay. So when you have those coming in, all they are simply doing is, it's like this build, operate, and transfer. There are 100,000 hectares tractors here. What I want this 100,000 tractors to do is what? Is to take care of every single farmer. If you have one plot, make sure it has a tractor. If you have 10 plots, anybody, okay? So people can be coming in and taking them at subsidized rates. Once government creates a private, public initiative like this, you can have somebody to hold accountable. Because accountability is corruption is what? It's lack of accountability.
Sure.
Okay, so once you begin to have people that are accountable, people you can hold accountable for actions, for responsibility, for funding, for what you have committed, then over time, you can build a system that can work. Because government can be working at the federal level. Because you see, NISAL is a fantastic model, for example. What was NISAL developed for? De-risk agriculture for local people. So if somebody wants to farm 10 hectares, for example, you go to meet NISAL and say, I have 10 hectares. All you need to show to NISAL, you have certificate of ownership and you have the ability to manage the farm. They'll make sure that you have tractors, you have seeds, you have fertilizer, and so on and so forth. But guess what? NISA is in Abuja. NISA should be in every of the 774 local government of this country. Be there with soil testing equipment, be there with GPS equipment, be there with tractors, be there with seed evaluation, seed monitoring.
Do you think government can provide for all that? That would be a bit cumbersome on the
Government
part of
is the only entity in the world whose capacity of funding is unlimited.
Certainly, that we know.
Okay?
But where does the private sector initiative come in? Where does cooperatives come in? As far as things like this is concerned.
Why do we always think that the private sector actually is that unique?
For me, it's the engine room of any economy.
No.
Well, that's my opinion.
That's your opinion, but the truth is this. Look at it this way.
Okay.
Have you not observed that if capitalism as a concept, a system of government, or a system of economies, is actually dependent on government spending?
Government
and that is why,
patronage.
yes.
Maybe government support. Maybe government.
But when government support,
regulation.
when government support is more than 70% of the total component of the economy, what does that tell you?
What we are saying is that it doesn't even have to be 70%.
It doesn't have to, but I'm telling you about industrialized economy.
Well,
because anytime you have, look at the last financial measure of 2008, the government practically stimulated expenditure. It happened in the 1930s. It happened in the 19... So every 10, 20 years, you see government coming in with more than 70% of the economy to stimulate expenditure. Are you getting it? Now, so if you're asking government to do what they should do to grow, the Chinese government controls more than 80% of the Chinese economy.
That's because it is a socialist economy.
It's a social-capitalist economy. It's the same thing you have in places like Norway, the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, and most of those countries. Those are social democratic economies where government provides massive infrastructural support for the people and also provide massive government business support for businesses, and that creates a balance. With increased taxation, so that the process can keep revolving, and that is what is the New Deal of the 70s by Johnson that took over from Kennedy. It was so that government can play government's role.
But if you look at it, those kind of stimulus packages come in only when the economy is at probably some form of depression.
No,
it cannot always be the case.
It's always there. Negative repo, negative interest rate. It's a steady element of the American economy. Subsidies, a steady element of the economy.
You know, the American economy is not exactly what we have
here. I know. No, I'm
so
saying...
when we are looking at these issues, let's try to, as much as possible, put some sense of decision.
What I'm trying to tell you is that if the supposed most capitalist economy in the world have very, very strong government support as the engine, what are you talking about with regards to our economy that actually is not a capitalist economy? I don't even know the economy we operate in this country. Okay? What more? I mean, you see, the government should drive the private sector, because government is the biggest consumer of what? Of manpower. It's the biggest consumer of what? Of production. It's the biggest consumer of everything that's available. And it's actually the biggest what? A buyer. Now, Dangote, who is the biggest? Dangote is one of the biggest businessmen in this country. He's number one in Africa. His number one consumer is what? Is governments, all the major governments in Africa. Because you see, economies and structures are designed in such a way that government regulate, like you said, and gives people, the private sector, the ability to do whatever they want to do, but don't go too far. Don't decrease your price too much, because the people must benefit from you. So what government do? Government acts like God for the private sector. You regulate them to what? To ensure that the influence of the people is what? Is viable, is structural, and it's fair. That's what they do. In our case, what is happening is that government comes in with the funding to what? To support. The private sector that is supposed to now allow that those funding are utilized effectively, so it filters downward, practically takes this fund or utilize this fund for the interest of those in government. And so you are battling, that's what I'm coming from. So you are battling a system that is structurally defective. But then you need a people who are willing, okay? People like I said, cooperative, bump yourself up together. Because sometimes you can force government to act
but don't
directly.
We blame that just largely on corruption, which largely has been the bane of everything that is of our essence, if I make bold to say so?
You are correct. But what drives corruption? Systemic corruption is driven by government itself. That's the point. Because look at what happened this week. We have heard revelations of a lot of the billions of dollars from Diziani and forfeiting left, right, and center. What gave her the access to those kind of money? It was because she was where? She was in government. Because if you're not in government, you don't have access to those cheap money. That's what I'm talking about. But when you have structural system control, when I talk about dictatorial democracies, that is where we come from. When you have structural system control, then you now look at the sector of the economy that needs these funds. You don't need, like I said, you don't need to begin to invest billions in trying to put spacecraft in the moon. What are you doing with it?
We are not there yet.
Thank you. You need billions to what? To put tractors on the ground. Because
buying harvesters.
Exactly. You know, my farm, more than 200 people are working in the farm. I pay them 1,500 naira a day. The fund is not coming from anybody, but from members of the cooperative who have contributed minimum of 75,000 naira per hectare.
Okay.
So that support structure is there. Created by who? By the people.
That's right.
Now, what is government supposed to do when you see a system like that is working?
You support it.
You support it. Yeah. But now, when they are coming to support it, what they first tell you is, look, what is it you need for me?
What do you have for me?
And I ask them, why would I have anything for you?
You because, can as well stay.
Yes, you can as well stay because we are able to do it on our own. What is the reason for me to have something in it for you? Now, even when government is interested in supporting us, like the Minister of Agriculture has done several times, the bureaucracy to get one bulldozer from Kaduna to Nasarawa for me will take the next 6 months. Now, NISAL is supposed to prepare for farmers. The rainy season are coming by March and April. You're supposed to get all your farmers' database ready by January. You're supposed to even begin thinking about disbursing to all of the contractors or the consultants who are going to be providing tractors and so on and so forth by February. So that before March, bulldozers are already clearing all the land, and then farming goes on. But by April, you are still compiling the list of those who are going to farm. So what do you mean when you say you want to diversify the economy? Are you serious about diversification? When there's 72 billion guarantee capacity of NISAL that is lying down there, and then they'll tell you, they wake up and tell you that we did well. We gave about 10 billion support to farmers at the end of the farming year. During the financial crisis of 2008, 2009 in the US, if government gave negative report, they were giving a quantitative easing. They were giving the banks about 60 billion. They started with about $80 billion every month. Now, from $80 billion, they went to they came down to 60 billion when the economy started stabilizing. Guess what? Negative report. If government give the commercial bank 10 billion and you keep that money in your account at the end of the month, you will pay government interest. Why were they doing it? Interest rates were low. They were doing it so that they will force the commercial bank to make sure that if I'm giving you 10 billion this month, make sure that the 10 billion is given to what? To private sector, to private people who need it. You see where I'm coming from. So government can increase their enforcement mechanism. Because the only way to fight corruption, like we said, EFCC, they said is working this recently. Why have they been working? It's because the president practically gave them free hand to do whatever they wanted to do. And so you are seeing results. Now imagine if the president has special interests. You will not see results. So we need to have that kind of control. We need to have that kind of independence for agriculture to actually take off in this country. Right now, it's not taking off yet.
How much of an impact do you think cooperatives will bring to bear?
Just like you said, the private sector is important. And sorry, let's not get ourselves wrong. The private sector is very, very important. I'm only making an ideological...
I understand what you're saying.
Now, just as the private sector is very important, so is the cooperative sector. Because cooperative sectors are... you can call them the closest people to farmers. Because if you tell every community in this country to form themselves into cooperative, they can. It is easy. And so if you're able to do that, it means that you're able to pool, you can take development from Abuja and the state capitals and take it to where? To where it is most needed, at the rural areas.
That's right.
And that is why you see, I always say that elections are in November in the US, and Hillary was feeling was going to win, but Donald Trump won because the rural votes were what gave Donald Trump victory. Because a lot of the rural areas are farmers. Okay? And so they are always, they influence government decision very strongly because they have been able to pool themselves into units across the Western world. And so they can actually influence government in decision making. And we don't need government to get it done. We need to begin to have a campaign like what you are doing now on People's TV. And you guys are doing a good job.
Thank you.
Your people visited my farm. The first report that came from you, and it was very impressive. I even played it today. Now, what you are doing now is one of the best ways to sensitize individuals, the youths, to begin to look inward. Forget about this Yahoo. Yahoo does not last. How many of them, look, how many youths are out there in the first place? We have about 500,000 Nigerians getting out of the schools every year. What are they doing? Less than 10% of them get engaged. So there's going to be a massive violent revolution If government and the private sector don't sit down and begin to look at how do we reabsorb these people into the system and give them a sense of ownership of the Nigerian of the stake, of the Nigerian structure. Once we are able to do that, then you avert a catastrophe that is incoming. Like Thomas Piketty said in his book, Capital of the 21st Century, he said we are heading towards the mass revolution we had in 1700. He said because now we are having so many people without jobs who are hungry, kidnapping is increasing, stealing is going to increase, a lot of these problems are going to come up. Now what government must do is, what people must do is to create themselves into clusters and then force government to act. Like I said, in my farm I have 200 people that are working for me. If I wake up tomorrow and feel that the government policy is not good enough, I can mobilize 10, 20 buses, bus them into FCT, and shut down the road in FCT. We'll come in with 2 tractors, 2 of our tractors, lock down the place and tell them, government, you're not listening to us. We are all farmers. What are you doing? You're forcing government to listen to the demand of people in the rural area. I'm not coming to Unity Fountain and sitting down and asking President Buhari also to resign. No. I am asking that, above all things, let government work for those who actually need government support more. And it's only agriculture that can give you the ability to go from a 2% GDP growth to 10% GDP growth within a period of 1 year. But you must utilize what you have.
Redson, there is something that has been on my mind, and I think you're someone I can place before. When we look at the rise from what we hear and what we read in statistics when it comes to issues that bother on rice production, do you fear that down the road there could be a glut?
Glut, there's no problem with glut.
There is a problem.
No, there's no problem with glut.
I will tell you why.
Okay, tell me what you think is a problem with glut.
You have a farm where you hire over 250 people.
Yes.
You are not on that farm for charity.
You're correct.
You're on that farm to make profit.
Absolutely.
You're on that farm to contribute to national economy.
Absolutely.
Now, if for any reason there is a glut, let's say you farm maize, and there's a drop in the price of maize,
yep,
you will lose.
You're right.
That's exactly what I mean.
And let me tell you why.
Where there is a glut, what becomes of those that are very enthusiastic, what becomes of those that are very passionate, are seeing that, okay, listen, we are willing to diversify. We are not interested in oil. We are not interested in other sectors of the economy. We have the land. We have the manpower. We have the expertise. We are willing to put same to action. What becomes of? Because, go ahead. I'll give you an example.
Why I'm saying, why should there be a glut? Is I'm going to give you a historical reference so that you understand where I'm coming from. The essence of colonization wasn't because there was no glut, supposedly. It was because there was a need for more markets. That was the essence of globalization. Surplus production led to what? Opening up of new frontiers. So that instead of the price coming down, let us look for a new market to sell to. Like I said, we're 180 million people. Okay. Now we are producing how many bag of what you're laughing because you know where I'm going to.
Well, because you are getting my question.
Exactly. I'm getting your question.
Yeah, good.
Now the thing is this. What I think we should do is America is not the largest market in the world.
No.
But the quality of the American market is higher than any other market you have in the world.
Packaging,
exactly.
Packaging. There's a word.
China. What has China done with production? China is the productive engine of the world, right? What the Chinese have done is they got to a point where they realize that our production capacity is increasing, so we must begin to develop the middle class, and so they increase the capacity of the middle class to spend. And so even if the Americans right now they are complaining because they realize that the Chinese are actually beginning to grow their middle class. The Chinese middle class is growing at about 20% per annum over the last 10 years. Even when that becomes saturated, look at what the Chinese are doing, begin to do in Africa. What are they doing in Africa? They begin to look at new frontiers. The Chinese, you think the Chinese president come here and give you 60 billion to Africa? You think it's for fun?
Well, he gives it even in Europe.
He's even building a rail line that is connecting China to UK.
Oh, yes, we know that. We know that.
So you see, you need to begin to create new frontiers. And guess what? Nigeria can have the whole of West Africa as a market base.
So how do farmers like you, what I want to hear from you is, I have always postulated,
yes,
it's high time we start seeing cooperatives come together to look for new markets for these products so that eventually we don't have a glut, and those who took their time out to make sure this comes to fruition end up losing out.
Nigeria imported Well, the last 2 months, we imported maize worth $15 million.
Why?
That's the point. Before you start talking about glut, okay, you have to talk about saturated, you have to be able to produce to satisfy your local needs. Right now, across board, okay, we are not able to satisfy our local need with regards to any product we're producing in this country.
Because we are still largely very present.
Exactly. So, first things first, let us increase capacity. Then, as you are increasing capacity, you begin to develop what we call the value chain. And so, you look at maize, for example. You're not just using maize to feed chickens. No. You're using maize for cereal. Yes. You can use maize to feed. They're using maize in laboratory experiments and so on and so forth. So, as you increase production, you break off a little bit and begin to develop industries that can manage those production little by little. And that's what Ivory Coast is beginning to do with cocoa. Ivory Coast is beginning to build factories that can make chocolate in Ivory Coast. That's right. Instead of Switzerland that does not have one tree of cocoa, Switzerland exports billions of dollars of chocolate every year. Finished chocolate. Ivory Coast is now beginning to go from just producing cocoa to what? To beginning to utilize the value chain of cocoa. So what do you do first? Increase your capacity. Nigeria is lacking about 5 million metric tons of maize every year. Okay? We are importing 1 million tons of palm oil.
Can we possibly bridge that gap in the next 5 years?
If we are serious, yes, we can. What does it take? If the government is interested and the private sector, private government partnership are available, you can farm 200,000-300,000 hectares of maize within the next 1 year. And you can bridge the gap within the next 2 years. It is all about the desire. The cooperative that we have is barely a year old. And we're having 2,000 hectares of farmland across the country. In Nasarawa, in Adamawa,
how many
without
people
government.
came together?
How many?
Like, how many people do you have?
We have about 10,000 members nationwide.
How were you able to get these members together?
I was the convener of Occupy NAS in April last year. I was a co-convener in April last year. And I was a co-convener in November, Occupy NAS Limited. And so, we're activists, ordinarily. We looked at the fact that, look, see, we're complaining that government is not working. And we come to Abuja to say we want to shut down the National Assembly. Politicians are politicians. They always have a way of running rings around you. And we can't sit down and then say you want to shut down the National Assembly and then you spend 3-4 days, you go hungry. And when hungry come, you go get off. So we went back to the drawing board and said, look, let us begin to think of empowering our people and give them a voice. Now, we have more than 10,000 farmers nationwide, and about 500-600 farmers who own hectares all across in Adamawa and Nasarawa. If at the end of every farming season, if their 75,000 can give them 300,000, a politician will not be able to come to them tomorrow and say, take 5,000 naira and vote for me. So you see, it was what? It is using the cooperative, pulling people together, and then not only rechanneling their mindset economically, but also rechanneling their mindset politically, so that they are empowered to what? To make independent decisions of politicians. You get where I'm coming from, right? So, pull cooperatives across the country, and you are very correct. Cooperatives must begin to come together, and we are creating. I was having a discussion with National Vice President of the Tilapia Farmers Association of Nigeria, Nuruddin Toba. We are discussing. We are currently in discussion to create an agri extension of workers' exchange nationwide, whereby anybody who read agriculture in the university, it can be part of that exchange, so that we can pull them from farms. We can pull them from wherever they are across the country. You can be an agricultural officer in Delta and you go and work in Jigawa. Yes. You can be an agricultural in Jigawa and go and work in. You understand that?
And we have them.
Exactly, and we have them. And at least we have more than 1 million graduates of agriculture sitting at home and doing nothing.
I believe so.
So you see what I'm talking about. So we're trying to use the cooperative. So the Nigerian Tilapia Farmers Association of Nigeria, the Nigerian Farmers Group, the rice farmers, all of us can come together and begin to exchange ideas, because the armyworm attacks not just maize, I think it attacks beans and other crops. We cannot begin to research and then get workers with an exchange. We can get crop within the exchange. We can begin to source funding even within the exchange. That is what we can do to first and foremost satisfy the needs of Nigerians. Because guess what, like I said, we are not satisfying 40% of the need of this country. If we utilize 50 million hectares of the arable lands we have in this country, we will not only feed Nigeria, but we'll feed Africa. And then you cannot become a major player in international politics. The Chinese did not beg for a permanent seat in the Security Council. They begged them to come and take the seat because, 1.6 billion people, a productive capital of the world, you have no choice but to give it to them. This one that we're going to United Nations to seek permanent, you don't have to beg for it. Let your economy, let your country, let your capacity, let your ability to utilize the resources that you have within be the determining factor in how people look at you on the outside. That is what agriculture can do for us.
Apart from your own cooperative, do we have similar cooperatives in the country that is agri-focused?
Yes, we have a lot of them.
Okay.
But like you said, we are still lacking the unity of purpose, of intent, of structures and direction. If we have that with all the cooperatives in this country, I can assure you, NISA will not sit down in Abuja here, have 72 billion naira of guarantee, and they will be telling you stories.
Just lying down idle.
We'll shut them down. Because we are telling 1 million farmers that you are what? You're doing paperwork for 6 months. We'll write to the Minister of Agriculture and tell them to shut down NISA or shut down the management of NISA. By the time you have that happening with NISA, you see that CBN will stand up. You see that other agencies of that. You see where I'm coming from, dictatorial approach to some of these issues. But if in a democracy, the people become the dictators. But what we have done as a people, I'm sorry to say this, but what we have done is that we pray a lot. We ask God to do for us what we can do for ourselves. The day God created you, He gave you the mind, the heart, and the capacity to what? To go into the world and do better things than I did. And that's why when the West developed, we said, oh, now white winch. What is stopping you from using your black winch to do good things for your people? So we need to be able to have that developmental capacity. The people need to drive the system. And so it is high time we stop running protests for the sake of protest's sake. It is time that we begin to think about protests that are what? That are targeted at changing the lives of our people.
That's right.
So if you sit down in Abuja and you're protesting, and your governor in Delta State is practically running rings around you, they come to Abuja, they pick money every month. What are they doing with those funds? Delta State and the whole of the southeast rather, was a major hub for palm oil production.
That's right.
And cassava. What is happening to our cassava? You go to the villages now, they see Gariba again. The truth is, we have lost focus of where we should be. And right now, all of us, we started chasing oil. Oil can be destructive. It's very wonderful, but it can be destructive. And how do you look at the fact that Chinese is not an oil-producing economy? And it's so massive when it comes. It's the productive engine of the world. With $3 trillion of external reserves.
It has the human capacity, and it has put it to use.
That is it. Develop the human capacity. And so the cooperative must become that engine of development. As I speak to you now, you're talking about not being the US, but in our cooperative, as I speak to you now, the locals that we trained when we came in are the ones using the tractors. Okay. So now imagine somebody who don't even know how to speak English using a tractor for harrowing and plowing. So do you need to be a rocket scientist? Do you need to put satellite in the moon to begin to check your weather of how the soil is before you begin to farm?
No.
So a lot of time government misplace priorities. They should rechannel. Look, I don't have any problem if government channel the 30-40% of our budget to agriculture. Because if you're serious about redevelopment, agriculture and education are the two key things that you need to do. Because there's no way you develop agriculture, you will not develop infrastructure. That's what we have to do.
Definitely.
That's the point.
As we move on, we'll soon be closing though. I will want to get your perspective on issues that bother on animal husbandry, because we hardly talk about those issues. We have left it to the herdsmen, we have left it to a few people that have decided to develop that sector. How best, in your opinion, can we make up for the loss in protein? I went to a village somewhere in Kaduna State not too long ago, and what I saw was mind-boggling. I saw malnourished children, yet in the midst of so much. I asked somebody a question. I was like, why is this the case? They said it's because children here are not given meat. Children here are not given meat. I mean, I was surprised. I had to go and find out from 3-4 other people, even though those others were saying, no, there is nothing like that. But how do we begin to make up for the balance?
I'm going to answer you from two dimensions.
Okay.
When we got to Nasarawa, everybody was afraid that they had communal clashes in the place before. What do we do? And because the land is large, we called all the Fulani communities around the area, and we said, look, you are going to secure this farm. We'll pay you. Your wife and children are going to work in the farm. We'll pay them. If there's opportunity to educate you, we'll educate you properly. And we did that. And we also sat down and discussed that with them that, look, we're going to create a grazing route even through the farms. So that we'll create about 500 meters, we cut off the farm left and right, and then plant maize, plant grass, fertilize it, so that your cows can come and graze. Okay. We'll do this for you. In turn, we do not want any problem in your community. So number one, security-wise, we're able to solve a security problem. And as I speak to you right now, not one maize has been eaten by a cow because the Fulanis are what? So it is farmers, cooperative, community integration that has worked. Number one. Number two, Nigeria is still struggling to get to 10 tons per hectare of maize. In Mexico, not the United States, because Mexico, I don't want to keep using US like you said. In Mexico, they are doing 18.1 tons on the same hectare of maize. So, and what is the difference? We did a study.
Could it be variety?
We realized that it wasn't a variety. It was process management. You see, the average Mexican farmer understand that there is a certain time of the day you don't apply fertilizer. Okay. They won't apply. They know when the rains are coming because they have, on their own, they have the weather gadget. They know when the rains are coming. So they can plan the processes of nutrients, the processes of grass, and all of the components of the agri process, and you see results. We have had this discussion with the Minister of Agri before. The quality of animal husbandry, what we get from our cow, is so poor. It's even below the average benchmark. But how do you make this work? How do you make it better? When he said he wanted to go and import grass, it was a good thing. There's nothing wrong with importing grass, planting them here, having the seed, and then continue to develop it. But like I said, you're importing grass to plant where? Have you taken the time to study why your cows are not yielding the desired amount of milk that each cow should yield? Have you taken the time to study that process? But what do? Even if you study the process, just imagine you sending me or you to the US, okay, or to UK, or to Thailand to learn about how to improve milk it from the cow. Production. And then we're in the studio. How do you impact that knowledge to those who are in the field?
Extension workers.
That is it. You see the essence of the extension exchange.
That's right.
So what you do is create an extension exchange like we're trying to do now. Then mobilize and train those who are into animal husbandry so that they can understand why we are failing. Once those guys understand why we are failing, there are two things that can happen. They are likely going to set up their own husbandry themselves or dairy themselves, or they are going to go and teach those who can pay them a certain percentage to acquire the knowledge. And so it reverts back to what? To proper education of our people. Because right now people are beginning to, maize is really doing well. And with the rice in Kebbi, in Kebbi State, they're now doing about 10 tons per hectare in rice with Kebbi. What was the average before? The average was about 3, 4. Now we're doing 10. We're going to go to 12, 13. Because in Thailand, you're doing 40 tons per hectare. Wow. It's all about proper education and understanding the process. We go from here to Thailand to learn. There's a technology that is so wonderful in Thailand. They plant rice, and in the same place, you have fish. Both rice and fish on the same pond, in the same land. So, you see, the water that you are using that is holding the rice is actually the water that the fish you're using to breed the fish. That's right. So you realize that 1 hectare that you give you only rice is giving you both rice and fish. And in the US right now, they're creating vertical planting, what do you call it? Right. So instead of planting, you can have 1 hectare, and then you can plant, you can have 100 rows. That's right. That you see that you can have 1 hectare this way.
And another hectare that way. Interesting. Wow.
But it's all about education. Because we have, like you said, we have the human capacity. That's right. The problem is that the human capacity that we have is not developed to a point where they can begin to utilize the structures or they can utilize the resources that we have. Right. So we're having a docile capacity with massive resources.
The capacity, unfortunately, as it is today, is more of a liability than an asset.
Thank you very much.
I hope we can convert that.
We have to. We don't have a choice.
Rexin, we've spoken enough. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for giving me the time.
The program has been Frank Talk, and you have been very frank. It's my sincere hope that words will be matched with action. And I hope that in no distant future, Nigeria will be able to, let's start with the West African sub-region, exactly, and then eventually take over Africa. Exactly. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your talks. That has been Frank Talk for today. I am Alpha Jackden. Thanks for watching.